Book 45, 2019 was Vox by Christina Dalcher. That's how you say her name. This book had so much potential, and I was left at the end being so disappointed. I saw this on the shelf next to Handmaid's Tale, and I love Handmaid's Tale. I've only read it once, and I imagine if I read it again I probably won't like it, but the first time I read it blew my mind, thought it was amazing, love the TV series, and this was promised to be something similar. So I was like, great, that's like, you know, love dystopia, love kind of anything about like feminism or the patriarchy, or it switched round. For example, like doing The Power, even though The Power was rubbish. So it was another one of those, same colours as well, red and black, they're always trying to do the same thing, aren't they? So I was like, right, brilliant. So at the beginning I was kind of like, okay, I hope this is good, but I was kind of expecting it to fall flat. When it first started I was like, wow, this is really good, this might be another one that's really good. Christina Dalcher was very intelligent, very able to kind of put into the prose things like about language acquisition, about Wernicke's area, and I was thinking, you know, she knows a lot about grammar, she's a linguist, so she was putting that stuff in there, and I could tell that she knew about it, and she was putting stuff in that she knows, and I was like, oh yeah, this is really good. And she wrote quite well, and it's kind of based on the premise where some body, I can't actually quite remember if it's like the government or they've been taken over, and they've got these things on the wrist where women can only speak 100 words a day, and that's it. So they can't speak anymore, and if they do, they get like electrocuted, and it goes up every word they say, it goes up 10 more volts, so you could practically die if you keep talking, basically. So the idea is, you know, from a little bit of operant conditioning, a little bit of positive punishment, that you don't talk. So it's kind of like this religious organisation that's kind of taken over. Very, very similar to Handmaid's Tale in that way, which is what attracted me to it. You know, I don't mind people ripping things off as long as they're done well. So didn't have so much of an issue with that. What was really kind of like disturbing about this book, and why it was really good in the initial stages, was because the woman in it, Jean, I can't remember her name then, Jean can't talk very much, obviously she only took 100 words a day, and she actually was a doctor, and she worked in you know, a very respectable kind of place where she, you know, did things with the brain and stuff. I can't fully remember, but that's kind of what I remember. It's such a long time ago since I read it now. And then it all gets taken away from her, and then she obviously can't talk more than 100 words a day. She has to stay at home and look after the children, and she has a daughter, and she has 2 twin sons, and she has an older son. And it's really interesting because her little girl is at the stage where she's acquiring language, but she isn't acquiring it in the way that she should be. And I thought that it was really interesting because if you stop a child from speaking and they can't develop their language, they can become developmentally stunted. And it made me think of cases like Jeannie. I think actually she like alluded to the case of Jeannie, where the girl was locked away, and she, you know, she couldn't speak properly. When she came out, she'd missed like the critical period where you learn language development. So that was really interesting as a kind of different viewpoint, to think, wow, if that actually was to happen, you'd end up with lots of females who were mentally retarded because they haven't had the opportunities to develop you know, language, and won't be able to develop educationally. And the manipulation of education and what's being taught to people as well changes the way that they think about things. So Stephen, I think he's called, is a son, and he's basically been brainwashed at school. They're teaching him all these misogynistic attitudes about women and about men's roles. Because Jean can't speak, she can't challenge any of it, and she's a feminist in the book, but she can't challenge any of it, and her husband is not really kind of like a strong feminist man either, so he doesn't challenge a lot of the things that are being said, which, if you know, he was a feminist, that he would challenge. And so it's really, really interesting to see that within just one generation, it's so easy to kind of control people and to control women in that way. And you can kind of understand how it happens in other places in the world, how very easy it is when you don't educate your female children to then have control over them, and why, you know, people in other countries are so desperate for education, because education is everything. Education changes, you know, your viewpoints about things and how you interact with other people, and it's just so important. And I think people in our society really don't understand the importance of education and what, you know, how much it helps you, how much freedom it gives you, and how much power it gives you over your own life that you wouldn't necessarily have if you were born in another area of the world. But that was as good as it got. And then the irony of it is that the way the plot develops, Jean gets the counter thing removed and she starts to talk, but the way she talks is really annoying. She's always saying kiddo and stuff like that. It's just, she just talks ridiculously. Like, if she's a strong feminist, she wouldn't talk like that. She'd talk in an educated way, but she doesn't. So the way she interacts with the children is very odd. And she is having, I don't want to spoil it for you, but this is why I hated it so much. She was having an affair with somebody, and then the way that it all kind of like comes to a climax, it just all, I'm not going to ruin it and say what happens, but it just all fits nicely. Like, oh, the person that's the problem in the situation gets nicely taken care of, and then they get to live happily ever after or whatever. And it was just like, really, like, that's, it was almost like she started the book, she did the first third and was really enjoying writing it, and then, as what happens with a lot of authors, maybe procrastination or whatever, or they just hate writing once they've, you know, started it off, they drag themselves through the rest of it to finish it, and it was bad and it was sloppy and it was such a disappointment. Like, you know, the only reason why I'm reviewing it like this is because I'm so disappointed by it, because it was so good in the beginning. It was so good, and it just flopped from 2/3 of the way on. I just thought it was really lazy, and I don't know if it's because maybe she just got disheartened, or she just, you know, maybe she was doing it for the money and she had to do it before the deadline. I don't really know, but I think, don't sell out. Like, you had a really good story there and you could have done that so much better than what you did, and it flopped because for whatever reason you chose to end it like that. I don't know, like, it could have been so much better. It was such a good thought that you had and such a good story, and it just wasn't executed very well. So, you know, if you're not as fussy as me, then maybe you'll like it, but honestly, it's nothing in comparison to Handmaid's Tale. It's just kind of it's just a rip-off book that could have been great but wasn't. It was very good in the beginning, but not in the end. So unfortunately, I didn't really like it that much, just because I was so disappointed. I hate like giving negative reviews about things, because I think, you know, someone has sweated blood and teared to write this, and it is their like baby, but like, I was just so disappointed because it was so good in the beginning. So yeah, I wouldn't, but a petrifying reimagining of The Handmaid's Tale, that is not true. Have you actually read both of these books? Like, that's not really, not, this book will blow your mind. Not true, Prima. Like, left me speechless. Well, it's the Daily Mail. Like, what do you think? Gripping. It wasn't gripping, Bella. Be very scared. Fabulous. No. It's interesting that all the people that have reviewed it are like really tacky, like newspapers or like fashion magazines. Like, there's no intellectual that's actually kind of wrote a review for this, so there you go. So yeah, good artwork on the front though. It did draw me in. I did think, yeah, that looks really good, so well done on that.